All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again today for Tuesdays with Tom. Just a quick reminder, just in terms of housekeeping notes, I actually recognize most names that I'm seeing on here, so I won't do my intro. This is meant to be interactive, so we highly encourage everybody to be on video. We're all on video. We would love to see your faces. And we will be putting questions in the chat, and like we have up right now, Tom will have questions up. So please feel free to engage, interact, and get the most out of this session. I am really excited for today's presentation, which is part of a weekly series, Tuesdays with Tom. If you haven't attended one of his calls before, you can expect a really interesting and engaging session. Today we'll be covering working with a virtual team. As the new normal has a heavy virtual component, even the most experienced professionals struggle with a virtual work environment, and this can be even more challenging at the academic level. Tom has prepared some great content on how you can make the most of working in a virtual team. With that, I'd like to introduce our wonderful presenter, Thomas Clark, who works at Corning as a Learning and Leadership Development Manager. Tom, all yours.
So please take your seats, fasten your seatbelts, make sure overhead compartments are closed. We are ready for, that was just like so good. Like every time you do that, I'm just like in awe of how prepared you are to make this sound like, I mean, you make the intro sound better than the content, so I got some living up to do. Hello, everyone. If you haven't had the chance yet, you can still put in your favorite vacation spot. I mean, I'm showing you one of mine right here. So this is, does anyone know what that is? Know where I'm at? Can you just guess?
Yeah. Great Wall.
Yeah, so that's on an unmaintained portion of the Great Wall. So when we were on a little trip, someone decided let's go to do a little hiking in Beijing on the Great Wall. I'm like, cool. So, I had all the pictures in my head of the drones flying over and how that pretty. And when we got there, I'm like, whoa, there was about 8 or 9 of us, and it really was unmaintained. So what you're seeing is that's a guardhouse looking out over the Great Wall. And some parts were a little more treacherous than others. Like literally I was pushing people up hills to get them into a guardhouse and that kind of thing. So it was interesting, but that was the view, right? So I'm pretty fearless. So that's about a 40-foot drop on the other side of my feet. I had a picture of my feet, but I figured I'd save that for another time. And just looking at how unbelievably majestic this place was. I mean, just crazy. And to think about the effort it took to build this thing, I just can't even fathom. But if I'm realistic and I'm really honest with all y'all, my favorite place is Disney. I don't know anyone in the picture, just in case you're wondering. So that's like not my sister or my kids or anyone else. I mean, I know Walt, he's the guy in the statue that's in the dark right there. But he's the only one holding Mickey's hand. I'm a Disney freak. And if I could go every year and I had people that would go with me, I would be there every year. True story. There's a conference for learning people, and it's by this guy named Elliot Mazie, and it's called Learning whatever year it is. Like, so this year's Learning 2020, and it's always held in Disney, and it's the best conference you will ever attend. The most content, okay, I'm lying. It's at Disney, so the content's, it's gotta be good enough. Anyone else? Man, quiet group here in chat. How many people do we have?
Don't be shy. 36 right now.
Cool. All right. So enough about Tom. Still love to see some more of these. Oh, the coast of Maine. So Catherine, I grew up in Connecticut, and we used to take this trip every year with all of my uncles and cousins, and we were outdoorsmen. So it'd be every year we'd stay in a hunting lodge in the woods in the sticks. And I've never been in a place where you literally felt like you could reach up and grab a star. Like the sky was that clear. It was unbelievable. So I would say if you get a chance to go, you should go. It's a beautiful, wonderful place. So let's talk a little bit about working with your virtual team. So there'll be some leadership stuff in this and some just practical kind of helpful aids to help you as you think about how do I work in a team that isn't co-located, right? This content you'll see here and on the next page, you'll see on my footnotes, it'll say, like down the bottom, Global Emerging Leaders. So that's a program that I helped design and develop for the company for emerging talent that we pull together from across the globe, and we put them in teams and we give them a problem, and they have basically 10 months, 9 months to solve it over 4 sessions. And we give them training on doing strategy, doing finance for Project 4 strategy, to try and get them ready for, those big jobs, so that they're clued into how to run a P&L and how to maneuver within the structure that we provide, the framework we provide around doing strategy. It can be a little complicated for those of us who've been here for a little while. Our strategy process is a year-long process, and it goes on and on and on. You have planning, green book, yellow book, black book, execution. I mean, I can't even keep them all straight. So we try and help people do that. And what I thought was missing when we put these teams together is I break them up geographically on purpose. So I have people from the States working with people from China, with people from Europe, because the time zones are so different. And that is really how we do our work. But I realized in doing so, it's a great challenge, but unless you give them some tools, sometimes it can be really awkward and really painful. So that's where this came from. This is the exact presentation that I give to these high performers in our company. If you're familiar with our band structure, it's the D and E band level employee, right? So they're going towards that director level. So you're getting the same thing as them. And honestly, I could give this to my kids in college and help them with how to work with teams now that they're not in school. So I hope you walk away with a couple of things that are very helpful to you. And reality is we have a global economy now, right? So companies are working globally anyway. So even before the pandemic hit, I mean, I had none of my team here. They're all over the world. So we need this stuff anyway. And now that we are not even traveling, it's even much more important. Now the numbers to the right, 50,000 colleagues, plus or minus, I mean, it's changed a little bit. So I had to, instead of doing the research and trying to update that, I'm just staying close. 23 countries, 107, 100 locations. I mean, just thinking about the magnitude of our operation for all the businesses that we support, it's pretty amazing, right, to have this kind of widespread global view. Now, if you were in my office with me, you would see up to my left here, probably to your right, is I have a big map, just so I can keep track of time zones and figure out, okay, when I'm talking to someone, where are they? And like, where are they proximity wise? It just helps me with adjusting my own style to them, and you'll hear about that. So you see the little statement down there, leaders have to be able to guide dispersed teams. Virtual distance is a game changer impacting relationships and team dynamics. All right, so virtual distance. So in the chat, all right, what do you think we mean by virtual distance? It's not actual distance, that's part of it, but what's virtual distance mean? Some thoughts. Yep. So you have time zone differences, you have cultural differences, great. So Bill, you wrote lost communication. Is that a statement or did you lose communication? I want to make sure that you all can still hear me, right? So someone waved to me in the camera to say you can still, good. Okay, thank you. I'm not going crazy. Yeah, the communication lost when, yes, absolutely. Like you've heard things, you get lost in the communication. Yeah, that happens a lot, right? Proximity. Um, we tend to have miscommunication. We are not a person. Okay, so I think that is mostly true, right? So when I look at the definition here, and I'm just going to kind of give this to you here, it's the perceived distance. So perceived difference between two or more individuals or groups caused by the persistent and pervasive use of technology mediated work and communications. So you have down at the bottom the formula, right? So physical distance, time differences, affinity differences, and then that leads to our great leadership challenge. The physical difference, time zones alone, I mean, I'm working with people in California, then I have people in Berlin. Now you may say that's not so bad, right? So 6 hours difference ahead of me in Berlin, 3 hours behind me in California. I can almost get us at the same hour in the work day. Well, then I add in China, Shanghai, and that's 12 hours. And then Pune, and that is like 11 and a half or 9.5. I can never keep it straight, but it's like a half-hour difference, and I'm trying to figure that part out. So the guy that I got to talk to there, he's got to catch a bus to get home. So it just starts to create like, oh my Lord, I got to figure out who's in what time zone, and then just like pick one, right? And then you have the physical difference, which is just not being in the same location, right? Being able to see body language right on, even though we have cameras and they're better, we're better at using them, I think, now than we ever were before. That's still a challenge. And then the affinity differences, which is cultural and communication styles and all those things that kind of make us who we are. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything on this. So I'm just going to give a little clarity, some of the notes that I had around affinity difference. It's the extent to which team members share cultural values, similarities in communication style, and attitudes towards work. The extent to which team members have worked together before or know some of the same people socially. And the extent to which each team member's status is derived from his or her hierarchical position, let's try to say that, hierarchical position in the organization and contribution to the team or the work effort, right? So you have all of those things kind of playing in. So if we look at these challenges, I gave you a bunch of them already, right? Physical challenges, I mean, if you have others that I didn't share, just go ahead and pop them in there, right? You have just the distance of not being in the same location and having to calendar and schedule rather than just maybe dropping by and saying, hey, you got a second? I'm a social person. I'm an extrovert by nature. When I'm in the building in Charlotte, North Carolina, when we ever go back in there, I walk the floors. I walk all 5 or 6 of them. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3. All 5 of them, because I want to make sure I'm connecting with anyone and everyone. And when the door's open, that means it's open. And I'm going to pop in and say to Steve Mitchell, who is the lead for carrier sales within OCO, Optical Commercial Operations, under Kim Hartwell. I'm like, hey, Steve, what's up, man? How are things? How are things going with Verizon? How's your team doing? How can I help you? Right? It makes it easier. Without that, it's a little more effort. You pop up a Skype window and you're, hey, Steve, how are you? And you're sitting there waiting, like you were green a minute ago. Yeah. Right. So then you have the time challenges. We talked about that too, just scheduling meetings and times. And look, I'm just telling you guys, and we have some of that on this call, right? People from all over the globe. You have to think about anyone and everyone and where they're located and map it out and make sure that you're ready, right? Make sure that you can include everyone, because as soon as you stop doing that, then your team breaks down and falls apart. And we talked about the affinity challenges already here, which leads to, I'm trying to move us through some of this stuff pretty quickly, some data. I don't know about you, but I like data, right? So this was a study that was actually done when talking about teams that are not in location, they're not co-located. Like, what are some of the team challenges that they face? The top challenge was the inability to read nonverbal cues. So even though I can pull up a panel and I can see all of you, I can't get you all on the same page yet. So even when I scroll and I see many of you are not using your cameras because you don't want me to read your body language, I can't really tell. And not just that, but when things get a little tense, I can just do this. And I don't want you to see that behind that little flick of a screen on my thing, I'm going, what the guy's, or I was just on mute, right? So I could tell you were on mute because you're talking and you're not, but I can't still read what your body language is telling me. And I can't, especially if I go on mute, you're not going to hear me sigh. Like, really? Come on, man. Come on, dude. I mean, you've all done it. Let's be honest. You've all been in calls too. I bet you there's been some of them in these sessions where you've just been like, dude, get to the point. Come on, Tom. Let's move along here. Well, you saw exactly what I was doing. Now, if I do this, I put my phone on mute. That's exactly what you get is nothing, right? So that is the top challenge for all of us. Smaller teams, it's easier, but even then, it's difficult. You're using cameras. issue in the plans. Can you use a camera out on the floor of a plant of ours? No, you cannot. So how are we going to do this? All right, we can do it in the back offices, possibly find places for it, but it gets to be a little bit of a challenge. Right, most virtual team members said they don't have enough time during virtual meetings to build relationships. We just started with a fun little icebreaker, right? Is that building a relationship? No, it's information, it's knowledge. What would be cool is connecting later on and saying, hey, Jack, I want to talk to you about your trip through the national parks. Like, I want to get a plan together. Can we meet a little bit later? I want to hear about what you've learned, what you thought. Tell me more about that. Right, that's where you start to build a relationship. Now, can you do it in a virtual team call? Yes, you can, but it's taking a part of your agenda and carving it out for it to be personal and not just business. Right, so you have to be really thoughtful about, for your team in particular, is how do we spend time on the relationship part of it. So instead of jumping right in and saying, okay, we're going to talk about virtual team challenges today, let's jump right into the content. Here we go. Like, you don't acknowledge anything or anyone, then you can run into problems, right? An absence of collegiality among virtual team members, right? I mean, just getting along, right? It's difficult to establish rapport and trust, to manage conflict, make decisions, and express opinions. You may have heard this in Corning. Measuring. We are not the greatest at being quick at making decisions. I would bet if you talk to Wendell Weeks and you talk to the leadership team, they would tell you that we've got to be faster, right? Because faster to market means quicker to get your return on your investment, right? Someone asked the question, like, what do you mean about collegiality? And that is just how we all get along. It's the interpersonal part of the team dynamics and being colleagues, right? That's the root of the word there. So it's similar to that, right? It's just the informal, formal way of us connecting when we're in the meetings. So what do we do about it? Like, if these are the real challenges, and they're pretty significant, if we suck at making decisions quickly, if we're not good at making decisions quickly, or we don't offer time for people to really express their opinions, then you can have a disconnect in your team. I'll tell you, I personally enjoy using WebEx or some other forum technology to have a discussion, because the chat can really, if you have people that are brave enough, they can actually start to pop in real thoughts in the chat window. And here's how I liken this. I told you I have 3 kids, 22, soon to be 21, and then 15. And I will tell you, they're much more honest with me via text than they are when they talk to me. And for some of you, I bet you that's the same thing. I'm not saying that any of you have ever broken up with, a significant other using a text or anything. I'm not saying that. But what but I am saying that the chat can actually offer a place for people that are introverts to be able to express their opinion more freely, right? Which is what you want. And the technology, by the way, we're doing this whole little session on how technology can enable a more effective meeting in the way that it's run, right? How to use polling and other things. And in sessions to come, I will have some polls up where you'll have to actually click on them and be a little more active rather than just using the chat window. And I'll show you some of that. One other note on this one here, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but we're going to blow through some of this content pretty quick. We did a session on unconscious bias right before I left for holiday, and I did some content like I'm doing with you. I mean, it was just like this for the first part, and I was asking them questions about what they think it means and what do you think the impact is and what is the impact of Corning for COC. And it was cool to see like reality popping up, people saying groups of people are disenfranchised due to bias in our company. We hire the wrong people. We hire by gut feeling, not by talent. People in performance reviews are not treated fairly because of their name. There's name bias, there's beauty bias, which is a real thing. All of these things kind of play in, and it was great to see the dialogue just kind of starting to happen by itself. And we had 500 people, almost 600 people on the call, right? So again, there's ways to use the technology to do that, right? So I just want to make sure we're clear. So what do? We have to bridge the gap. All right, so we're going to talk about 9 things. All right, 10 things. Sorry, I didn't move my chat window. We're going to talk about 10 things. What I would like for you to do, because at the end of this, I am going to ask you a question. And I want to know what your takeaway is that you will do differently in working with a virtual team or leading a virtual team. Because remember what I told you guys last time? You're not going to remember all these points. And again, Jessica, make sure I get this deck to you. I don't care if you guys take it and read through it and look at my notes. I mean, you're cool to do that. I would ask you not to share it outside of us for right now, only because some of this is proprietary content, et cetera, right? But I want you to think about what is it that you're going to do differently to be an effective virtual leader. Some of it we talked about last time. We'll talk about some more of it today. So we're going to go in order like this is. It's counterclockwise, then it's figure 8, and then back to counterclockwise to clockwise. I'm trying to be funny here because I can't get a sense. I can't see you all, so I'm hoping that you're hanging with me here. So if you're having a good time, can you just put in the chat there, I'm having a good time. Keep on going, Tom. I mean, give me some encouragement, some feedback. Smiley face, love it. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. See, that's what I need. I'm that guy. So let's talk first about planning for the right touch points. What do you think I mean by that? Planning for the right touch points. Planning for the right touch points. Give me some of your thoughts on that. Yep. Checkpoints for projects, celebrating successes. Stella, you can't see like my other screen with the answers, can you? Because that was pretty good. Finding common ground, like how frequently the routines are. Yeah, like all those things matter here, right? I'm gonna get a little more specific because what I want to make sure that we hear is virtual isn't the answer all the time. Okay, so Tom, you're telling me that we're going to learn how to do this virtual. Now you're telling me it's not. I'm a firm believer that virtual teams, they should come together at certain points. Project kickoff, great place to do it. You bring people together, same page, going over the project initiation sheet. Maybe it's the project charter, developing the charter together, looking at assignments, making sure everyone's onboarded, they know what their role is, where they're supposed to go, celebrating those milestones, or at specific toll gates in a process. So whether you're using Six Sigma or a DMAIC process or a design process where you have your different toll gates to come in, it's cool to come back together for those kind of things. Now, you see where I went with this, right? I kind of led you down touch points because you did all the things that I think are right for virtual. I'm just making a point. Togetherness is a good thing. We won't be able to do that for a little while, but I'm still a firm believer in this whole thing. So I don't think virtual training is the answer for everything either. Although I'm a firm believer we don't do it enough because we suck at it. Gotta stop saying that because we're not good at it. And we think that taking a PowerPoint and putting it into some kind of a format that makes it really great training. And I'm acknowledging to you right now that what I'm showing you was in-person training that had activities baked in that I had to pull out for you. So I transitioned something that really wasn't meant for this, right? Without doing a whole lot of extraordinary redesign because I didn't have the capacity, but it's good enough for right now. And sometimes it has to be, right? So when we think about that, setting mutual expectations. So what are some expectations that you think we need to set when we're really kicking off a virtual team? Or you have an extended virtual team that you're leading? Yep, so again, right. So this is where you're getting into some of the more details, right? Demos to clients, how often do we meet? You know, all leaders have to align their team on the common set of goals. You have no choice. It doesn't matter whether you're in person or whether you're 2 time zones away. If you're not on the same page, have the same goals, then you're going to blow up. And some of the studies say that if you pull a team together to work and you don't have those expectations set and that clarity set from the very beginning, there's no clear vision or goal, you got about 90 days. And if you don't do it within 90 days, you are done and there's no recovery. So as leaders managing virtual teams across the globe, right, that vision of what the team is supposed to be, how they're supposed to operate, comes right with setting these expectations, right? So make sure you do it very, very quickly. And then, we have this whole accountability thing. I would tell you that without the accountability piece to a virtual team, it's really difficult to be successful, right? You have to determine and clarify your vision and your goals, roles and responsibilities. That's really critical. What are the interdependencies, like of each other, of other businesses, of technology? What are those things? Task and process. And what I started to type down in the bottom here was that word accountability, because in all of these things, as the leader of the project, of the team, etc., you've got to hold people accountable for what they're supposed to do. Because one breakdown in the chain, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? I know I hate saying that statement because it's been said my entire life and I'm old. It's really true. The chain breaks and you're done. I mean, you just can't move forward anymore. Or if you do, so perfect example again, I'm out riding my bike because now there's nothing else to do. So I'm going to ride my bike that I haven't ridden for a number of years. I just put a little oil on the chain because I'm like, it's all good. And I'm going to pump it up and I'm going to go up this big hill. And I'm like halfway up the hill and my chain snaps because it was just old. And did I get to the top of the hill? I did. But I will tell you, I had to push it halfway up. It's just really, really difficult, right? So have some accountability. Make sure everybody knows what is your role, what is your responsibility. What I'm telling leaders now is you need to go reset your team, especially if they're virtual now. Make sure they understand what the roles and responsibilities are going to be. Point blank. Document it, have the conversation, get agreement. That way you can move forward. And then simplify the work as much as you possibly can so that it's a little bit easier to do the work if possible. Do you still need all the toll gates and you need to sign off on everything that's done? Where is the freedom of the individual to do some of the work without the leaders checking the box? That's a hard one at Corning because we tend to be the check in the box kind of group. We bring everyone and their mother to every meeting, and sometimes it is their mother too, and we want your opinion. So, we try to get to some kind of consensus, and we call it collaboration, but it really isn't. Because at the end of the day, we've got some decisions that we have to make, that we have to move forward with, right? And who has the D? Who's got the D to make the decision at the end of the day? By the way, if it's you, if it's me, declare that. I think it's okay to say, listen, I'm bringing you all together because I'm going to run a pitch by you, but I want to let you know I just need your input, but we're moving forward with this. The decisions, I've already made that decision. I'm looking for your help to whatever, right? Be clear. But if you set the expectation that you're asking them to help for that decision and it's a group decision, when you step in and you say, well, I'm making that decision, then you basically have screwed yourself because everyone's waiting for that opportunity to vote. And you don't always get that choice, right? Which comes to committing to a set of operating principles, right? What are those? Right, here's some of them. Tell me if you guys, what you read into those, like which one resonates with you? Encouraging everyone's input, support for one another. I mean, these are nice Pollyanna kind of words, right? Recognize each other's contribution, open and honest communication. I think they're pretty. Those are pretty words. I like operating principles of like, it's not personal. Be direct, it's not personal. Live our values, but speak truth. I like being a little more defined in these. Now, these still work because they say those things, right? I would write them probably a little bit differently, now compared to when I first started using this a couple of years ago. Encourage everyone's input. I think it's more than that. I think if you got a team, everyone's input is mandatory. Doesn't mean you have to speak. It means you have to communicate and be part of the team and part of the process and have a voice at the table. Because if you don't, if you fail to speak, then you've just lost your input. 1 second. Man, I just had a really good thought for about 2 seconds. It'll come back to me at some point. All right. Any questions so far? So we're 30% there. We covered 30%. Yeah, we're 30% there. Yeah. So Gabriel, I like the listen thing, right? Because what's really important to me is as leaders, we think facilitating a meeting means talking all the time. I'm talking about a work meeting, not a training like this, right? I'm talking about a work meeting, a project meeting. I will tell you, I think the facilitator's role in those meetings as a project leader, as a team leader, is to talk the least. Like, let people have a voice, ask questions to guide them to where you get what you need as the leader for the update. If their update's not clear, Tom, I got a couple questions for you. You said back on slide 2, like I'm not really clear because I was doing the math and you said 20%. When I did the math, it came out to be like 30 or 40. That's a huge swing or difference. How'd you come up with that number? Now, I didn't call you out. I just asked you to explain to me how I got the math wrong, because it probably is me. But if it's not me, then I help catch something that's really going to change everything, right? Being honest. All right. Investing in relationships. Let's see what you guys remember here. How do you invest in relationships? What do you need to do? Tell me some ways to invest in relationships. Communicate, listen, yeah. I'm laughing because it's like, it's kind of stuff we've been talking about, right? Active listening, yeah. I think, is that on the list, Jessica? I'm trying to remember. Is that one I threw out to you that we should do?
It is. It's in either next week or the week after.
Woo-hoo. All right, so you got some advanced homework on that one, like to come and teach me on what that really is. Check in on people. All right, so Helena, you said to understand. All right, what do you mean? Is it to try and empathize and try and understand where they're coming from, not jumping to conclusion, getting their perspective, so you better have a point of view to help them? I'm assuming that's what you mean. Did I get that somewhat right? Yeah. Socials, love it. You can do them virtual too. We have a virtual happy hour every Friday. Now, just I think I told you this last time. This is sparkling water. Just want to make sure you don't think I was happy houring it just yet. Although I do also have a red Solo cup, and I know what you guys know what that means. Back to the chat window here. Being genuinely interested in others and their goals. Guys, I think you're nailing it here, right? Because all those things build trust, right? And as a leader, if you can, I'm talking about even at a peer level when you're leading project teams, if you can get past the wall that we put up in corporate America to kind of protect our little selves here, to where they open up a little bit and there's a little vulnerability on their part and on your part. Again, back to the Brene Brown book. This one is called Braving the Wilderness. It's another good one that I'm trying to work my way through here. It's incredible how much trust building, being vulnerable can really bring to a team if a leader can actually embrace that. Someone said spending time. I agree. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but back earlier, and it must have been, yeah, you guys were just little. Everyone talked about quality versus quantity. Well, as long as you give them quality time, then it's good. So they were talking specifically about kids. It's about the quality, not the quantity. Can I call BS on that? I think I just did. BS. If you really care about me, you're going to spend time with me. And that includes people we work with. It includes taking the moments of time where you can help them, because sometimes you got to fix the person before you fix the problem. Like if you can't get someone out of the funk they're in, and by the way, it happens. Okay, this is Tom being honest. Right before I went on holiday, I was so burnt out. I was just literally struggling to get through the day. And I was just tired. I talked to my boss and we were talking about something and she must have sensed it. And she's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm good." The whole "I'm good" thing, that usually means they're not. Like the text message back, like, "Hey, we're not going to be able to get together here. Are you okay with it?" "Yep, good. I'm good." That should be your signal to say, "Yeah, you're really not good. What's up?" Right? So get to the person level before you fix the problem. Nurture and grow individual relationships through ongoing communication. You just got lunch with colleagues. I love that. Like there's so many little things you can do. Another little thing here. See, yeah, I didn't want you to see my shorts because then you would think I was facilitating in my shorts. They're nice shorts though. All right, so another selfish plug here, right? So this is a box of note cards. I'm a pianist, and I've been playing all my life. I'm not a great classical kind of guy. I play a little bit of everything. I just play because I love it. This is some sympathy cards, a box here. Yeah, these are for my daughters. I don't care if they're 21 and 15 and they get a little "I love you" card in the mail. These things matter. Let me tell you how I know. So we started this whole little group project where we identified parents of this team and we shared addresses. So I sent cards to 4 or 5 different people, the father, the mother of my colleagues. I gave them my parents. My mom calls me, like she FaceTimes me, which is funny to kind of watch. And she's like, "Hey, do you know a Diane card?" "Yeah, Mom, I work with her." "Yeah, she seems pretty nice. She seems to like you." Like, "Okay, how do you know that?" "Well, look at this card I got." And I go by their house, and on top of the piano that I still play at their house are 4 or 5 cards that came from people outside. And I can't tell you what it did for my mom and dad, right? And I can't tell you what it did for me, that someone would take the time. Without getting emotional here, I sent a card to a colleague's mom and dad, and little did I know, and it was just trying to be encouraging and feel the love, and I love working with your daughter. She rocks. She's a mentor, and she's awesome. Comes from good dirt. You guys did a great job. I can't wait to someday meet you. Little did I know that 4 weeks later, her dad would pass. So everything you do with intentionality, I think, just has a way of coming back around to you, right? So invest in those relationships at all levels, at all times, personal, professional, by the way, with your boss. So it's okay. Like we're on COVID lockdown. I know my boss likes just a straight up latte from Starbucks. I was out and about. I picked one up for me. I picked one up for her. She lives 10 minutes from me. I know where she lives because of a Christmas party. I drove by, put it in her mailbox, texted her and said, "Hey, there's a latte in your mailbox for you. Hope you have a good day." Now that's not sucking up, a little, but it's not primarily sucking up. That is investing time in someone else because I know how hard she's been working over especially the last year. And I know that those things, a cup of coffee can go a long way, a long, long way to help a person kind of make it through the day. Okay. Are you getting something out of this? Come on, I'm looking at the chat. Help me out here. You getting a little something? Yeah, there we go. A little yes, a little amazing. Yeah, send me the emoji like the Superman thing. That'd be good.
You're getting a lot of thumbs up in the video, so.
All right. We're moving that way. Only on 4. You're like, "Tom, you got like 20 minutes left. There's no way you'll get through this." Yeah, I'm pretty good at this. All right. So engage in ongoing virtual dialogue and information sharing. So this is a shared understanding comes from ongoing sharing of information. What I think is really critical is as a leader, as a colleague, you are constantly sharing what's happening and where it's happening and status. So I'm not a firm believer in just giving a status update for the sake of a status update. They can get boring as hell and it just drives me crazy. Like I can give you a status update, by simply giving you a 4 blocker, by the way. See if I can find this. Okay, you guys got me for 1 second. You all right? Hang tight. See, I knew I would need this, and then I didn't get myself ready, give myself enough time. Ooh, that's better. Okay, give me 1 second here, right? Because I really want to show you something, and this is a great communication tool that I have been using for a long time with my boss. So I just want to pull it up. I thought I had it open here, but it must have. There we go. Okay. I think this will be worth your time. So thanks for your patience in dealing with me as I kind of shifted things around a little bit, but I think this fits the point saliently. Like, so this is my update tool and tracker that I use with my boss. Now, the reason I did this is, I gotta fix, I had Thursdays with Tom, so Tuesdays is better, so I'll fix that one. But what this allows me to do is very succinctly communicate to my boss what is it that I'm doing. And when I look at it, it helps me also understand why I'm overwhelmed, right? This is my list. These are my projects. These are the things that I'm doing. This is the integration I have with the corporate learning group, WDNL, what projects I'm working on with them. You know, doing 8 videos and recording all of them and scripting them, etc. I'm like, okay, now I'm kind of understanding. And then I'm looking at like the accomplishments. Okay, I can feel pretty good about that. Like these things are going pretty good. It lets me get ready for the end of the year. This is a great tool to use with your leader or with your team to stay connected. So in my one-on-ones, we look at this for about 10 seconds because it doesn't change a whole lot unless something new is coming on. And that gives me the chance to say, all right, so you want me to do this unconscious bias training with another division. I'm pretty maxed out. Like, is there anything I can slow down or hold on this that I can reprioritize? So it gives me room to negotiate. Or I can say from a timeline perspective, I think I got a window here. Can I do it then? Just another little great tool. And I'm happy to share this template with you too. I've gone without using it, and I will tell you, I don't nearly get the clarity that I need from my leader when I do that. So, you know, back to our points about making sure we're on the same page, right? I highly recommend that you have some type of a tool to make sure you're communicating effective way. Right? Err on the side of over communicating, strike the right balance between live verbal communication and live written communication. You know, I think these are pretty commonsensical kind of things. Communication tools and meeting stuff. I mean, we're using WebEx right now. Good tool. We don't nearly use it to the degree that we could. So in coming sessions, we're going to have a place for you to play a little bit, because if you go to your little menu, you can actually ask and request to annotate or to write on my white screen, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of put your stamp on different things. Some of these tools, you know, off to the right here, just listed all of them, and some of them are even no longer existing, right? So Microsoft Link, now we have Skype, right? We want to use platforms that are appropriate for what we're sharing. So have you heard of the blue line? Raise your hand if you did. So, yep, I got it, blue line. Right, great tool, but it serves multiple purposes. So it can actually act as almost an intranet page as well as just a page to be able to share, you know, the thought of the day. You know, Skype, obviously, you know what it does. Box is a repository for all of our files. There's new technology enabled with that right now to where you can pull files from different boxes into a shared place where all of a sudden everything's in one spot, not in 5, and it links them all together so it becomes a collection of the right documents in the right moment and the right time. Obviously, WebEx, email, and text. talked a little bit about those, I think, with you guys last time. You just got to pick the right mode for having your conversation, right? For me, when I'm in the same location, I do my one-on-ones in person at the cafe, or I'll bring a cup of coffee with me to sit down with Mike Bell as an example. This is true. We had some time planned. I needed to run something by him on a leadership program. I needed his support, and right before the meeting, I sent him an instant message, like I broke all the rules. Said, "Hey Mike, I want coffee. You want to meet me in the cafe?" And he helped design the building. Like, love to. So we sat in the booth that had a screen that I was able to present from my laptop onto the screen, had our coffee. We were done in 15 minutes. The rest of the time we spent, the other 15 minutes, was just catching up on the direction of the division, right? So pick the right platform for your meeting. It can be in person, but some of these other tools, they actually are pretty helpful. Blue Line, Yammer offers really some pretty cool features. Sharing documents, collaboration tools within that are really nice and really easy to use, right? But we just don't use them enough. Or if it's even just to have a dialogue on a question, if you have your own protected group for your team, you know, you can start a dialogue, a thread, and people can be adding comments, etc., you know, as you need to. Right, so again, I try to give you a little bit of a matrix here. You know, if you look at the mode itself, it's just a little simple tool, right? If you're brainstorming, you can use the Blue Line or WebEx. So again, WebEx has this great thing you can use for whiteboarding, where you're just generating ideas and thoughts, et cetera. People can communicate from all over the place, et cetera. Great tool to do that. All right, WebEx, obviously, decision making, right? We really need convergent thinking, coming together. You know, WebEx, that's got to be in person. And what I mean by that is WebEx or some other forum where you can hear the voice. Skype to some degree, but I would say that's probably not optimal, right? Preparing reports, you have Box and Blue Line. Again, we create a lot of reports here and review every line in a spreadsheet. I do not think it's the most beneficial use of our time to be looking at a spreadsheet with 250 rows, 16,000 columns, and trying to figure out what column A12 really means, right? Be succinct, pull it out, analyze that, have the stuff in the back page to say this is what it really means, but this is where I need you to help me make the decision. All right, the rest we talked about already. All right, decision making. So how many of you would be honest and say, in most of my relationships, I like to be the decision maker? Raise your hand. I'm just looking at them. I'm laughing because, yeah. Okay, maybe the better way is, how many of you like to have the last word? Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So Jessica just called out. Yep. Yep. Oh, so some of you are saying, I wish I had the last word. So you're living with people that got to have the last word. Imagine two people that got to have the last word. It's like never ending. It's pretty comical. So I think sometimes how we're put together, how we end up together is to try and build a little piece into relationships, because my wife and I both kind of like to have the last word. And what's funny is it's like you try and get it as you're walking out the door. You know how you do that, right? You're like, oh yeah, one more thing, you say, and then you kind of close the door, and you think you got out of it, and then you hear the yell that came from underneath the door, and you're like, crap, she got it right. Damn. Well, clear decision making isn't about the last word, but it is about who has the last word, who has the D. Right? I talked about that a little bit earlier, and I knew we were going to get to this here. You have to consider the individual and the culture. Can anyone tell me a culture that defers decision making to the hierarchy? What cultures do that? Take a guess. Your family, dictatorships. Yeah. I'm talking about like world cultures, country cultures, right? So forget that I talked about the D being, I'm talking about in business situations and settings, there's specific cultures that when asked a question, will defer to a leader before they answer that question themselves or make a decision. You know what those are? Like what countries? Yeah. Yeah, Asian cultures in particular tend to operate more that way. It's not, again, I don't want to paint a broad brush, but that's the way it works. So if you have a team that consists of people from different Asian cultures and someone's boss is on that team too, don't expect those 2 or 3 people to chime in when their boss is right there. You may have to work a different way to get their input, right? So that's why you need to understand how that person works. Now, if that boss is not on the call, maybe you set up a separate one and you have a discussion with them and they're going to be a little more free to talk to you about what their opinion really is, right? What's the process for making decisions? And be clear about it every time. All right, here's how we're going to make a decision. We're going to take a vote. All right, everyone ready? Who's in, who's out? All right, the yeas win. Sorry, nays, get on board. We're moving forward. Right, ensure the team member, they know their role in the process and you're really clear. Don't ever bring something to a team, like I said earlier, when they don't have a decision-making right. They're just getting information. And don't ever set up a meeting where you call it decision XYZ without telling people that you've already made it. Because if they're coming to a decision-making meeting and you've already made it, then they're going to say, why the hell did you just waste an hour of my time? You already made the decision. You don't care about my input. Right, so you got to be really clear on all of that. Action-oriented meetings. Listen, if I had $1 for every time I went to a meeting where there wasn't an agenda, I'd be pretty rich. And if I have $1 for every meeting that I scheduled that didn't have an agenda, I'd still be rich. So I own that one, right? Set clear expectations. There was this book written by Ron Ritchie. He was the culture executive for Cisco. He might still have that role. And he wrote a book on collaboration. I'm trying to see if I have it up here. I think I left that one in the office. And one of the points he made is, in every meeting invite, you need to tell people what they're going to do. So if, let's say you have a group of 12 people that you want to bring into this, but only 3 of them need to participate, then what about the rest of them? The other 9, you need to say, Tom, you're invited just to listen in. It's information only for you. I don't need your input. So you can opt out, right? Be really clear on what you're expecting them to do. If they need to be prepared, tell them exactly what it is that they need to prepare. This means as a leader, you got to be prepared yourself. You can't just show up to your meeting and say, oh crap, I got a meeting today and I forgot to, all right, I'll wing it. They will know, right? And it doesn't make good use of people's time, you know, especially across the globe. Someone's calling in at 10 o'clock at night from Asia, and you're not prepared. Think about that. Like, you got to turn off your favorite show at 10 o'clock and you got to get on a call and someone's on there. You have no clue what you're supposed to do there. Right, include only those who need to be there, set it for the right time. Who says a meeting has to be an hour? I mean, challenge yourself, set it for 30 minutes. To prove this works, my previous boss, who now is HR executive, he and I were talking when he first took over the team, and it's Rob France. And he said on one-on-one, I got 30 minutes once a month. I'm like, 30 minutes once a month? Dude, I need 30 minutes like once a day to talk to you about what is on my, you saw my list, right, guys? I showed it to you. 30 minutes, you want me to go cover that in 30 minutes? And he said, trust me, it'll work. I'm like, all right, okay. So he was really clear on what those meetings were going to be. I still created that document, but I also focused on the things that I needed from him right then. And I will tell you, we were done in 10 minutes. Now, there were times when I needed something outside of that, and I would say, I need to talk to you about the Global Emerging Leaders Program design, and I need to walk you through my proposal. I need an hour just on that topic. Can we do that? Yep, let's schedule. Okay, cool. And so there's room to move in there, right? But there were other times when we had team meetings and I didn't want them there. I'd be like, Rob, I don't need you to come. Well, why not? Because we're not ready. I'm not ready for you to be there. And you're going to come in and you're going to have an opinion. And I know you'll have that, but I don't want it just yet. Kind of said it nicer than that. Set the right amount of time. All right. Clarify and track commitments. Right. We use this document at Bank of America when I worked there. It was called the TAR. It was the Task Action Register. You can use a project plan. You can use Microsoft Project. It doesn't really matter, right? But if you set deliverables, if you want to have accountability, you need to make sure everyone knows what they're supposed to do specifically and when it's due. all right, after each call with everyone around the world is make sure they understand, all right, Jessica, so we agreed that you were going to post this document out to the box folder so everyone can have access, and you're going to send me your feedback by Thursday at noon, correct? Correct. And then I'm going to follow it up with a summary email to make sure everyone knows exactly who said what and why they said it and what they're going to do. This one here, again, we've talked about this, but I wanted to end on this note here because culture it's so important. We used to have a tool called the Cultural Navigator inside of Corning where you could actually go in and do a mini assessment based on the country you were visiting and the country you're from, and it would tell you where your gaps were, like what you needed to watch out for. I didn't do that real well. I did it on a couple of occasions. I went to Shanghai with my boss and a bunch of other executives. We all got together for dinner, and it was a cross-cultural group. I was laughing and talking, and I figured I would be the kind one, and I would slide into the back side of the table because no one could get out there, and no one ever likes to sit in a trapped place, right? And I couldn't understand why no one moved. And then it hit me, crap. In this culture, you don't sit until the leader sits, the host sits, and then you move. So I had to apologize that I just kind of missed it, right? So that includes meetings, right? So you have the fixtures and fittings, like what does that really look like? I know you're probably saying to yourself, like, what does that really mean? It's the cultural differences that are readily apparent to us on the outside, such as dress, mannerisms, etc. You have actions, behaviors. Culturally, we're different. Do some research on all of them. I would encourage you to do some on each other. Have some conversations yourself about how your culture likes to work. Things are evolving and changing. I get that, but there's still cultural nuances that we need to be aware of. Then you have the implicit part of it, right, which is the norms in there, the right or the wrong thing to do, how people act or react, what their values are, good and bad, that unless you really dig in deep, you're not going to know. All right. So these are the things that you have to do to be able to work virtually, both projects, teams, lead teams, etc. Because if you don't get into this, you don't understand who you're working with, you're going to probably tick somebody off. You're probably going to offend someone. You're probably going to leave someone out. You're probably going to misinterpret why someone isn't acting because you're not aware where they're coming from. So what I would like for you to do is tell me in the last minute or so that we have, what's your takeaway? What's the one thing that you're going to do differently as you embark on this journey to be great virtual leaders? By the way, the name of the book is called The Collaboration Imperative. All right, so what are your takeaways? So tell me what's one thing that you're going to do differently working virtually with teams? So far, Jessica, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for those of you wondering, now is the time that you enter your response in the chat.
Thank you. That was a nice bailout there. All right, setting agendas for meetings, right? Make sure everyone's participating. Invest in a relationship with your team members. Good. Cool. Just want to make sure you're all right there with me, right? Yes.
I actually just want to comment. I think meetings having clear goals is probably one of the most important things. I definitely noticed at Corning, people are guilty of just putting meetings on calendars with no content, and it's really hard to be effective and prepare and be your best self when that happens. So I really like that.
Yeah, me too. I hate those meeting invites that they don't tell me what it is, right? I mean, at least tell me why you want to meet with me. I mean, research the area of the world you're meeting people in, seek to be more self-aware. Yeah, guys, I think you got it. So you made me feel good that you were listening and paying attention, because I honestly believe, and that one wasn't meant to be funny, but it was kind of. In this day and age, in this time that we live in our world, right, cultural sensitivity, I think, is more important than it's ever been. And understanding others helps you understand yourself. It helps you become an ally and an advocate for those that are different, maybe those that are disenfranchised, maybe those that have not had the same path as you, maybe come from a different background than you. And I can only promise you this, that your life will be richer personally, professionally. You will grow professionally because you'll know where to go and how to adapt to different cultures if you learn it early on in your career. That the best part of your life is to come. Right now, I know I'm talking about virtual leadership, virtual meetings, but I'm just telling you that if you do these things, it does start to change you. All right. So that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for the time, for the energy, for the effort, for virtually laughing at my corny old man jokes, as my daughter reminds me of. And if you have any parting thoughts or shots, take them. If not, you can always reach out to me directly. I've gotten a few emails from the last one. I'm always available.
Thank you again, Tom. I love all of your presentations, huge fan. So really, really like the content that you provided. We did have one last quick question.
Yes, exclude them.
Should you exclude members? Yep, perfect.
Listen, if the person isn't, you're welcome to invite them. Just tell them what their role is, right? You don't want to exclude someone from a meeting when everyone else is in the meeting. But I think if they're not going to have a right and a voice to make a decision, it's okay to tell them, hey, Jessica, look, I want you to come to this meeting, but you're really there just to listen in. The other 4 people on the call are going to make the call on this one, but I want you to hear how that worked. All right, are you cool with that? So make sure you're really clear on the expectation. Great question. Way to end it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Tom, for your time. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
Bye,
Bye.
world. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.